What is up, Jabroni JJ back here from Run Pure Bets, talking a little MLB. Some cool kids call it Major League Baseball, I think. Saturday, April the 8th. Um, Nice slew of games. I will say this, like, it feels like MLB got their scheduling completely effed this week, and I don't understand why. Like, Thursday, they had a bunch of early games to compete with the Masters. Yesterday, they split the slate again, I think, like almost right down the middle. I just don't understand. Like, have your few games early. I mean, I get it that Good Friday's kind of like a mini holiday. It's a holiday for some, not all. Passover Thursday's a holiday for some, not all. But like, it just felt like they just got the scheduling completely wrong. And then like today, you got 1 2 o'clock game, like 6 4 o'clocks. Like I don't know. I just feel like they just consistently get the scheduling wrong. They were doing this a lot in the back half of last year too. So kind of frustrating. Like obviously your first game's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Great, yippee. Um, and then you got six at 4, and then you got a few games at night. I don't know. Just the scheduling seems to be completely effed, in my opinion. What's up, Mike? Yeezy? It's happening. But no, baseball's been fun, right? The first week and a half or so. A lot of overs coming through despite cold weather, which has been interesting. Obviously it's a short sample, so you don't want to go crazy, making over predictions. I use the word over there, meaning like making too many predictions on what you've seen with this small sample. Because remember, baseball's a 162 game season, right? We're 8 games in. I mean, no mathematician, but what is that, like 5%, 4.5% of the season's completed. So there's still a whole lot of baseball left, and I'm not going to jump to crazy conclusions about, the pitching clock or batter's clock, whatever you want to refer to it as, speeding the game up in terms of making it harder for pitchers. I don't necessarily know. I do know that the more pitchers bring down the clock, right? If you're a hitter, I mean, baseball has a tremendous amount to do with timing in general, right? So, I mean, just think about it. Like if you go to a batting cage, right? Like how easy it is to hit at a batting cage. Well, especially if you're used to seeing if you're used to seeing 75 or 85, 90. I mean, most batting cages really tip at 85. But like if you're used to seeing that type of speed, like you just get into a rhythm, right? You know when the pitch is coming, and your timing is perfect. I think you're starting to see a lot of like the clock winding down to like 3 2 1, and the batter knows the pitch is coming. I think there is that predictability factor with a pitcher's mechanics as far as when they're actually going to pitch, and it seems to be a little more predictable for the hitters early on. I'm not saying that's going to be a trend to fall in love with, but yeah, it has seemed to be advantage hitter and certainly advantage for people stealing bases. Those numbers are way up as well. So either way, obviously nothing to go crazy over, but definitely something to keep in mind as you handicap games moving forward. We're still in a pretty cold spurt here. Like as I even look up and down the board, like all your games that are outdoors today, it looks like the warmest game is going to be in Colorado, and that game's only 62 degrees. Just a chilly weekend in certain respects. But with that said, it hasn't seemed to matter much, right? There's been a lot of games getting over. But there are a few spots I like today. Actually, like a few unders today in certain spots. But look, I don't blame people for liking overs throughout. They've been coming through, and there's been a lot of sticks that have been working out. And obviously, certain ballparks this time of year, they don't have as much carry to them, right? Especially in the National League, some of those NL East parks. But needless to say, weather is what it is. All you can do is just try to find your advantages and not go crazy. Not go crazy doing so, right? All right. So also, obviously, Masters is going on. This is a baseball video, but been a fun few days, right? I think it's been pretty interesting. The strong takes folks took, whether it was pro Kepka or anti Kepka. And man, he's looked good. Like I know it's only 2 days, so obviously a hell of a lot can happen the next 2 days. But he's got a 5-stroke lead. So yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive. The guy that barely plays golf all year, barely seems to even get up for non-majors, and then every year the Masters, he's just seemingly around. So kudos there. But without further ado, let's just jump right in, right? So Twins Astros. Astros are off to quite a little slow start, but a lot of that is, I don't want to say a lot of that is Bregman, but Alex Bregman has been dog shit. Now, granted, it's not like I think anybody had like crazy high expectations for him coming into this year anyway. But he's obviously still a great ball player. Man, has he been an absolute disaster in the middle of this lineup. I know it's early. You don't want to go crazy. And I know he typically, I think, tends to struggle this month anyway, career wise. So I don't know if it's just, he's used to getting off to slow starts or whatnot. But man, he has been rough. Looking here, it looks like he's batting what 152. No homers, no triples, no doubles. He's slugging 152. Yeah, just kind of insane in that respect. And then Jordan Alvarez has been out, I think, a few games too, and he's incredible, but he hasn't been playing every game. So yeah, ultimately, they haven't been great. Their pitching hasn't been excellent. It's been good, hasn't been excellent. So anyway, so today, Joe Ryan hosts Garcia. Now Garcia is, in my opinion, the worst arm on this staff. He's good, but this staff is pretty talented. Joe Ryan, it's actually a decent spot for him. I think that the troubling part with this is obviously you're getting another relatively chilly game in Minnesota. I wouldn't consider 56 cold, but it's certainly not warm, especially in a sport like baseball where you're kind of standing around with your hands in your pockets for much of the game. Joe Ryan's great. I think Joe Ryan earlier in the year last year was doing a tremendous job limiting home runs. This year, but the back half of last year, that was not the case. I think he ended the season giving up like 23 or 24 homers, which is crazy because I think up until like July or so, I think he'd given up like one or two total home runs. So, yeah, that caught up to him quick. Regression, if you will. But again, he's going to be facing an Astros team. It's just not really hitting. So, um, I get this total at 7.5. As far as how this game goes, I know this is practically a pick 'em. I would actually lean the over at 7.5. I know that here's what I know. I know that Joe Ryan can give up the long ball. I know that Luis Garcia is just not great. He's going to get himself into multiple jams. And 7.5 runs is really not a lot. Like, right? I mean, shit, 3-3, and you feel kind of good about yourself. I mean, because at that point, yeah, obviously if it's 3-3 in the ninth, you don't feel good about yourself. But if it's 3-3 in like the sixth or the seventh, you feel really good about where you're at. And that's not crazy, right? I think that's the big fear when you bet unders at 7.5, even unders at 8. You worry about a tie ball game and how that impacts an extra innings, how that impacts. But needless to say, slightly over. I know the weather's not favorable there, but Joe Ryan to me is a volatile pitcher who can certainly give up the long ball. And while the Astros haven't been hitting that great, they certainly have guys with pop, especially left-handers who typically give Joe Ryan more trouble. And Luis Garcia, again, not somebody I would probably be a top three pitcher for the fuck. Would probably be a top three pitcher for most squads, but not on this Astros team. So yeah, small lean over. I know you got decent pens as well, so maybe you want to go first 5 over. I don't love this bet, so it's not a bet I made. But if we're talking numbers, there is a favorable small lean in favor of the over. Okay, so then we'll head over the 4 o'clock. I think there's like 6 or 7 of them. Looks like 6. Phillies Reds. So Nick Lodolo obviously had some aspirations coming into the year. I like him. I don't love him. I think he's okay. I think he has a glass ceiling, to be honest. But time will tell with that, right? Because we've seen guys with similar stuff like him that can still find their way to be very effective in the league. I think he's got some maturing to do in a few certain aspects, though, pitching wise. I'm not talking about his personality, so calm the fuck down. As for this spot, though, Philly's been awful so far, and I know that they finally got to come back home after a big road stretch. But needless to say, I don't love them. I also don't love the idea of laying 140 with them. I get it, like they're okay, but I don't love the spot, to be honest. Another spot where it's gonna be cold, but now you're talking a park. Now you're talking a park set, so 8. I'm also seeing some 7.5. You're going to see me in the bets I fired on today were unders, but you're actually going to see like the games that I lean. I have a lot of games that I lean over. This park, okay, when we talk on park dimensions, okay, Philadelphia is not very often this season going to have totals at 7 or 7.5, especially since remember no more pitchers batting in the National League. So when you talk about how the advantageous addition of runs has been earlier in the year with the pitch clock. And you talk on, I'll call it added stolen bases as well. This, for me, overall, a number like this at this park is kind of ridiculous. However, these teams aren't exactly like smacking the seams off the ball either. So kind of enough for me to wiggle back and forth there. But yeah, you'll never see me betting an under at this number at this park. I don't think you can. I actually don't think you can over the course of a season make money betting unders at parks like Philly. I don't care how cold it is, and this isn't even freezing cold. It's 53, so 54, whatever. Yeah, so small lean over as it gets to 7.5. Obviously, if you can get 7.5 over, call that a small lean. 7 would have definitely been a bet for me. Look, I don't. It's hard to say. You got two decent arms. I am really not a Bailey Falter guy. I know he's still very, very raw. But at the same time, he has shown some promise in certain ways. Not great by any means, but again, he's going to have the weather behind him. He's home. Um, I just, to me, this is going to be a game where you're going to have a lot of guys on base throughout the game, and you're going to be sweating an under in this spot. And look, it can get there, obviously, if guys don't do anything with runners in scoring position, but definitely lean the over in that one. Giants Royals, Sean Manaea, and Brady Singer. I'm a big Singer guy. Like, I like him. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's. I know there's certain folks that do think he's actually decent, but for the folks that don't, like, I think he's a lot better than people think. When he's on, he is really good. The problem is that it's just not always on, and his floor is quite low. When we talk about guys with high ceilings and certain floors, he can definitely go out and be wild and walk a ton of guys. But when he's on, he's tough. Sean Manaea, um, you know, you love the K upside that he brings. Obviously, he comes from the left side. The Royals don't have a lot of people that really scare you, bats wise. But interesting first start for Manaea. Kind of got wrecked, right? Semi-wrecked, I guess. Wrecked to the point where they didn't even want to run him longer than what they were or what they planned to. But he didn't look great. A lot of contact, a lot of hard contact early. Now, granted, he plays the Royals today, which will have a very forgiving lineup, or we'll regularly have a forgiving lineup. The lineup's not out yet, but you kind of have an idea of where that's going to go. Overall, I can't like a side here because I think that the Giants are getting a lot of respect at this number with Manaea, and I like Brady Singer. So, small lean in favor of the Royals. Don't love the spot by any means. You can maybe find a happy medium by just betting Royals team total over, or maybe Royals first 5 over, because I just don't trust Manaea at all. But again, it's gonna be a chunk of a number, right? I mean, I can't imagine it's 1.5. I mean, let me just see. It might be 1.5. I'll tell you this: if it's Royals team total over 1.5 first 5, like minus 115 or less, like to me that's a pretty juicy spot. I just typically when I bet the first 5s, like for runs, whether it's over unders, typically I'd like to have a really strong stance there because remember those bets are more heavily vigged than your standard game line bets, right? Like they're not like they're going to add an extra 5-10 cents pending your book on bets like on derivative bets like that, right? So you just got to keep in mind your winning percentage has to be higher when you're firing on those types of bets. But I am trying to look here if they have it. Innings, first innings, runs. Okay, so yeah, so Royals team total first 5 innings over 1.5 minus 145. It's a lot of vig to lay, and then remember, the other side is plus 115. So you're just not getting fair lines here, right? Like I mean, these are basically 20-cent lines, minus 125 versus minus 105. So just keep that in mind. Like these aren't great spots, or at minimum, actually they're probably 15-cent lines. Now that I think about it, but either way, they're not 10-cent lines or 8-cent lines like FanDuel often has with games. So just keep that in mind. I do like the Royals to get on the board with a few runs early, but minus 145 is a little too costly. So I don't think that necessarily be profitable for you long term. What's up, Leroy? Mark? Hope all is well. All right, hold on. Let me just pull up the next game. Talk a little through it. And again, keep in mind, guys, it's still relatively early in the season. You're not going to see me take like a crazy hard stance on a pitcher or an arm or anything like that. Just because, look, it's early, right? It's almost like think about it. Like if you were to equate this into the NFL, right? NFL with 17 games now, where each game is about what 6 to 7% of the total season. Baseball, we're not even 5% into the season yet, right? So it's almost like week 1 hasn't even completed the NFL yet. And think about how many people overreact after week 1, right? And we're not even that much in. So I think that people might be overreacting to what they're seeing as far as data goes. But again, needless to say, all you can do is take things one day at a time. Cubs, Rangers, Justin Steele, Martin Perez. Look, credit to Perez, right? I mean, this dude just continues to find ways to get outs. He was a gas can for a few years back, and then became really good with Texas for a year, and then kind of seemingly went back to his ways. But look, credit to him. He doesn't throw hard at all. Just finds a way to get outs. He's a smart pitcher. Justin Steele, right? A lot of people like this cat. And I get it, right? Lefty, good stuff, decent strikeout potential, can wiggle himself out of jams. Um, I'll be honest with this line. Like the Cubs are getting a decent amount of respect here. Like I get it. The Cubs have had a decent start to the year. And you could argue Steele's their ace, but yeah, I don't. I think the bet here would be Texas or no bet. Because, but the reason why I'm not doing it is because I just don't. Not a. I don't like Martin Perez. I don't bet a lot of his games. I find him very hard to predict. When he's pitching well, you're getting taxed on it. When he's pitching poorly, the other end's getting taxed on it. But this line to me is relatively close to fair. Like to me, this game should be a complete pick 'em, but instead it looks like the Cubs are 20-cent favorite. So to me, it makes it a 10-cent favorable spot for the Rangers. I don't love 10-cent spots though. For me, that's why it becomes a stay away spot. As for the total, look, you got the wind kind of swirling in Wrigley. It's not great. It's not awful. It's not that cold. It's not that warm. It's probably going to play semi-neutral. Two decent arms. A slight lean on the over. But now that it's 7.5, it's hard to really like it. So yeah, easy stay away from me. Let's move over to Mets Marlins. Now this is a game I did bet, and I bet the under here. Just trying to see if that number's still live. So I bet under 7.5, and that was -105 at DK. That was like an hour and a half ago. Just looking what that line is now. So same thing, 7.5 total, under -105. Now look, Senga, okay, is a guy that comes highly touted, right? Highly recruited. I say recruited, LOL. Highly touted, was a freak for why the Mets wanted him to begin with. Just happened to just not have a great start his last time out. And Trevor Rogers is another one where it's like blah. And I know that Senga ended up with a 1.69 ERA, but man, did that dude wiggle himself out of some serious jams. He almost was at the point early in that game where you felt like he might not even make it out of the first inning. I think it was like, was it bases loaded, 1 out, or bases loaded, no outs? A run had already scored. Somehow he wiggled himself out of that jam and then cruise controlled from there. It's an interesting thing to look at it moving forward. If that's going to be something where he kind of needs to settle himself down early in starts and then he kind of gets into a flow. We see that with certain arms. Obviously, one start, nothing to go crazy over. But yeah, I do like him as an arm, and he's drawn the Marlins again, which to me might be somewhat advantage Marlins. Obviously, just seeing him, but he's still very raw as far as his MLB pitching. So I think that there's still not enough to draw crazy conclusions off of him, but do have high expectations for him. I do like him. So despite him looking like a little rough early in his last start, he ended up cruise controlling from there. So obviously can build some confidence. And look, on the alternative end, Trevor Rogers, if you guys remember, like it was like 2 years ago where like he looked like, dare I say, like pretty good. And then I don't know, like last year, it seemed like he went quite backwards as a pitcher. I think, or am I thinking of 2 years before? Yeah. So 2021, he had a big year, I think. And then 2022, like it's just kind of like he imploded. It was hard to specify where, because I think if you look at his metrics, like it wasn't like he lost a lot of velo. But anyway, so he's back again this year, off a bad start in his first time out. Got kind of shelled, not like totally shelled, but kind of shelled. Home run didn't help, and this was against the Mets. But here's the thing, right? So that was in Miami, where it's definitely more of a pitcher's park for sure. It's one of the biggest parks in the league. However, here today, one of the reasons why I like this game is it is going to be fucking cold in New York. Like I live in Jersey, live about 30 minutes, 40 minutes from this stadium. It's cold here. And look, you hate to handicap a game purely just off weather, but it is going to be hard to put a ball out of that park today in this weather. So if we can kind of keep home runs neutral, right? I think that these two arms can find ways to wiggle themselves out of jams. I do like the pens from both teams. The Mets obviously lost a ton with Diaz, but they still have a good pen. Marlins pen was, I don't know if you guys remember, like last year out of nowhere, like their pen looked like strong. So either way, I think while the number might appear small for this park, or might appear small in general, remember this Mets City Field is still really a pitcher's park. It's obviously not as egregious as the park down in Miami, but I like it. I think Rogers is not nearly as poor as the ERA shows, and hopefully he can bounce back a little better than he did last year. And Senga, I've already said I'm high on him. I didn't like how he started the game last week out, but really got him in cruise control from there. So kudos. But either way, I like the spot. I know there's been runs in this series, but I do think we have a favorable edge there in terms of weather. And remember, yesterday was warmer, right? So it's not like now we're betting it. No, yesterday was colder. I mean, sorry, warmer. Today's a little warm, colder, and I do like the spot for there to not be a lot of runs. And again, if we can just keep the ball inside the ballpark in this weather, I think it keeps us very, very favorable to cash this because I don't think we're going to get a whole lot, a whole lot on the base pass today. But anyway, look, time will tell. All right, so Tigers, Red Sox. Red Sox are again off to a fairly slow start. They face Joey Wentz today from the Tigers. Look, not a whole lot of data on Wentz. I know that he doesn't exactly have a whole lot of MLB starts under his belt. He looked okay his last start. I know he got punched up a bit, but like he wasn't really allowing a lot of people on the base paths. I don't know. Did he give up a home run? Either way, what I remember was he was really doing a good job limiting people on the bases, and he still kind of got semi-shelled against the Rays. As for Tanner Hoke. I've never been a fan of his. I know that he doesn't have a whole lot of just similar. I know he doesn't have a whole lot of traction in the league either. But I know he's like your glorified bullpen guy. I didn't like him much last year. I don't like him coming into this year. So I just think overall, Boston feels like a steamed favorite here for like the wrongest of reasons. But either way, I don't know. They were a bigger favorite last night, and I would have fired on the Tigers had I seen I think they opened like -155, which is fucking crazy. With Tanner on the mound. So yeah, ultimately small lean Detroit, very small lean Detroit. This would have been a much bigger lean when you could have got like +135 with Detroit, but that number's long gone. So stay away spot for me. And yeah, I don't trust much about the Red Sox this year again. And the Tigers, look, I get it. Tigers aren't great, but at least they're managed well. So yes, it's another stay away spot for me. We got one more 4:00 game, I think. Rays and Athletics, Jeffrey Springs. Wow. Did Springs look good in his first start, right? I mean, oof. What was it, like 5 innings, 12 Ks, something like that? I mean, look, strong left-hander, right? I mean, the dude is a freak. Whip of .17. Like, what do you give up? 1 walk or 1 hit in the 5 innings? I mean, just an absolute 6 innings, 12 Ks, just an absolute freak. Coming off a big start, I will say this, just based on principle alone, I rarely target guys like Springs off a big start. This is a great spot start for him, though. Again, you have an Athletics team that just doesn't really threaten you much, right? Like, and then, Oakland's rolling out Shintaro today. Another guy that has accolades in other leagues that obviously is now coming to the majors. I'm not going to act like I know everything about this dude, but he certainly got shelled his first start out. I'm not going to play into that either by over predicting what happens in this start. I just know that a -300 favorite off a big start is an easy pass for me. As far as the total goes, yeah, betting overs or unders in these games aren't really fun because if you get an oopsie run or two from the A's, it puts your total in jeopardy for the over. But I get it. The under makes sense too because Springs can shut this team down for 5-6 innings again, or in this game. Yeah, it's a tough number to climb, and you might need to get it all from the Rays. So yeah, either way, just a lot of arrows going different directions for me on that game. So another easy pass. Guardians Mariners. So Cal Quantrill, Marco Gonzalez. If you guys remember from Sunday, this was actually the lone game I lost. I had bet Marco at home, and I think he gave up a 3-run home run to like fucking Austin Hedges or somebody deep in that Cleveland lineup, which definitely tainted the game a bit. But needless to say, the Mariners still battled back. They lost in extras. Thought I'd get a better start at a Marco, and thought we might get a better start at a Quantrill too. I was just thinking that we would get it would be like a 3-1, 3-2 type of game, or heading into the 7th or 8th, and I think it was close to that, right? It was like 4-3 or something. But needless to say, the game went into extras, and the Mariners lost in extras. There was also an error in extras, which was kind of why they lost. But needless to say, they lost. And here, what I find interesting is this line is giving a lot of respect to Cleveland, like a whole lot of respect to Cleveland. And if this line moves any further up, I will definitely be betting Seattle again in this spot. Now, I can't do it yet because to me it's not favorable enough. Like I always prefer Marco at home because you usually get a better version of him at home versus on the road. I know it's easy to say with a lot of pitchers, right? But he's just typically been a guy over his career with much better home road splits. So I do have to shade that back into that favor, right? But when you talk about this line, right, this line's a 30-cent move. If you think home field advantage in baseball is worth 30 cents, which it could be, depending who you ask, then it's fair. If I think it's a little less. The problem is that I do have I don't really ever bet Marco on the road, so I would need a juicier price than what I'm currently getting. But I do think you very likely get a better pitching performance out of both these guys. It's going to be cold in Cleveland, per my understanding. 50-ish, 44 degrees. That's very cold. But these teams are hitting, right? Like you saw the Mariners spike runs yesterday late. Julio hit a big 2-run homer. And then Cleveland was getting a lot of foot traffic yesterday. So either way, stay away spot for me. If this line did happen to bolt up to, what are we at currently? If we're currently at, plus 115, minus 135. If I was able to get plus 125 on Marco, undoubtedly I'd bet it, even though I have a negative bias against him on the road. But again, it is a numbers game. That would be where I'd bet it, and it's very slightly under. So other than that, another stay away spot. Pittsburgh Pirates versus the White Sox. So Vince Velasquez, Mike Clevinger, as the cool kids call him, Clevy. We bet Clevinger a few weeks ago. Was it last week where we bet Clevinger? Either way, a little bit of a different spot, right? Vince Velasquez goes home to pitch in Pittsburgh. Now, granted, it's a new home for him in general, but over his career, he's been much better at home. Obviously, we talk on the Phillies days. He's been much better at home than on the road. Clevinger threw really well in his first start. I think it was against Houston where he struck out a ton of guys. Tough to say, right? Smoke and mirrors type start. Is he back? Tough to say. I'm not going to try to predict that. But what I will say is that I do most often like Vince Velasquez more at home, or at least where he's got the crowd on his side. Let me put it that way. But in relation to this start, look, the line is relatively fair. Right, like the White Sox should be about $1.20, $1.25 here. It looks like it's what they are. If I was able to skid and get the Pirates at plus money, I would take it. The Pirates are playing well right now. This is likely a trend that's not going to continue long term, but they are playing well right now, and the White Sox are once again finding ways to lose baseball games. So yeah, if this was to boost up to like plus 110, like what are we at now? Plus 100. Yeah, if this was to boost up to plus 110, it would be a very strong lean. Plus 115 would be an auto bet for Pittsburgh in this spot, but overall, at the current numbers, I more or less have to stay away. Let's see what else we got. All right, let's move over to Braves. Well, I guess I could do these 2 7:00 games before that. All right, so Cardinals Brewers. So yesterday I bet the over 8.5 in Milwaukee, a park that, rain or shine, the ball carries. This has a retractable roof. It will be chilly, semi-chilly again in Milwaukee, but I assume the roof will just be closed. It won't matter. At least I thought they had an open roof. Like I'm looking here, it doesn't look like they do, but I don't know. I thought they had a retractable roof. But either way, it's still going to be chilly. I'd expect them to probably close the roof today. But in relation to this start, look, Eric Lauer, Jordan Montgomery. Look, you throw Jordan Montgomery against a lineup with heavy righties, he's likely going to get himself into trouble. Doesn't mean he's always going to get damaged for it, but he's going to find himself in jams. Eric Lauer, journeyman, left-hander. The problem is he's a left-hander facing a lineup in the Cardinals that has just so many potent righties. I wanted to go back to the well here and bet over, but man, I just hate getting stung by the same game twice, so I didn't. But yes, yesterday I lost the over in this game. It really wasn't even close. But again, I would very strongly lean over again in this spot. I don't very often like to go to the well twice and lose the same bet twice in a row, 2 days in a row. That's why I didn't. But yeah, considering I'm not betting it, there's probably going to be 35 runs scored in this game tonight. But again, the main cap is, you have 2 serviceable lefties, but you also have 2 lineups with a lot of girth on the right-handed side of the plate. So yeah, and the Brewers' pen is not what it once was. Granted, it's still up there, but it's not what it once was. And the Cardinals' pen I have next to no respect for. So yeah, again, I once again like the over, but I didn't bet it, so I avoid losing the same game twice. Orioles, Yankees. Orioles off to a decent start. Cole Irvin, who they picked up from the Athletics, I don't like him at all. I don't think he's a good pitcher. Another lefty that doesn't really strike anybody out, and finds himself in a lot of jams. His whip is always high. Brito is interesting, right? I mean, Johnny, and we like our Johnnies, right? LOL. Good start last time out. I don't know what to make of it. It was one start. I know that he comes semi high on the recruiting end of things or the scouting end of things, but again, I don't know. I don't love. The Yankees are dealing with injuries with their staff. I think it's part of the reason why he's in this rotation. He's gonna have a tough deal today. This Orioles team is hitting, and they're really smacking the seams off the ball. So, but it is chilly today. Another game where it's going to be cold. So, to me, this is relatively fair down the line. Slight lean Baltimore. I just hate Cole Irvin, so it's hard to actually put your hard-earned money on a guy that you don't like. So, yeah. Either way, stay away spot for me. Slight lean Baltimore. Don't love the spot. We can just move on. All right, next game up. This is going to be another best bet, second best bet of the video. Braves, Padres, Charlie Morton, Michael Wacha. I get it. The Braves have been literally tearing the seams off the ball along with the Padres. Padres in certain ways, but Braves have just been incredible. And, you expect it right up and down. They arguably have the best lineup in baseball. This is a spot, though, where it makes sense to bet this under. This number is big. So I bet this under 9, minus 105 at DraftKings. And this number is big, or why I say it's big is because it is chilly down in Atlanta. And the whole point of that field in Atlanta is the ball carries in warm weather. It is not going to be that today. You might also get some rain in the mix, which could impact how long these two starters go. I'd almost hope that they go longer, though, because I do have certain respect for Wacha. He's kind of turned himself around a bit from his plaguing days that he was having. I think it was in Tampa where he was just getting shelled almost every start. Charlie Morton is a guy that pitches better at home. He's a guy that relies on control. He's a guy that relies on swings and misses. The weather favors him tonight. Because who the hell wants to be batting in this type of weather? So yeah, ultimately, I get it. Tough bet to make. Tough bet to want to make with how well the Braves are hitting. I'm not necessarily fading the bats. It's really the spot. This is a terrible spot to expect runs. It could happen. Of course, you have a lot of guys with a lot of pop. A few balls leave the yard, and poof, this bet's done. But if we get less than 3 home runs in this game, which is your typical average for a baseball game, right? 2.5 home runs. Especially when you impact the weather here, I just really like this. This is also favorable to get to guys out of jams. Michael Wacha's a ground ball pitcher. Charlie Morton can definitely strike people out to get himself out of jams. He can also walk people to get runs in, but as long as control isn't a crazy issue from either of these arms, I do think this is a massive number for this park today. Granted, you will see some games in Atlanta in the summer where you'll see a number of 10.5, 11, when it's especially very humid and feels like 100 and wind's blowing out. This is like a polar opposite to that. And yet this line is bare. And you have two decent arms. Like these aren't two arms that I genuinely like, oh my God, I have so much respect for these two arms. But these are not bad arms by any means. And this number is high. So yeah, I do like the under 9, minus 105 DraftKings. So that was where I fired on. Let me just type these in as well. I completely forgot to type these. So what was the first bet was under 7.5 Marlins. So Marlins Mets under 7.5 minus 105, right? I think. Yeah, both are minus 105. And then it's Braves Padres under 7.5 minus 105 as well. So River Red, I did briefly touch on that earlier. I do think that the sample has shown that it's going to be favorable for more overs, and once the weather gets warmer, shit might really go nuclear. My thing is today in particular, you just have a lot of cold games, and the totals aren't like adjusted that much. Like it's almost like books took a stand of, look, we're getting crushed with over money. Like we're just going to post same numbers even though the weather's not ideal for it. So yeah. Oh, whoops! That Braves is actually under 9. Sorry. So needless to say, I think that it's very early. And what I mentioned, River, was that The season is only like 4.5%, 5% completed thus far, which is actually less than after week one of the NFL as far as the whole season goes. I'm not want to go crazy dramatic with, oh my God, this is what we can expect. Like, no, like you can, in theory, and you could be right, but we're very early. I typically like to take hard stands, after about 4 or 5 weeks of baseball. We're barely, a week and a half, LOL. So, yeah, not going crazy with it, but it has certainly seemed like overs have been um, coming in, and there's been just a lot more home runs, a lot more stolen bases, a lot more hits in general. Pitchers' ERAs are getting inflated, but again, time will tell if that's just early season jitters or if that's going to be a trend that continues, or maybe we have a quote unquote juiced ball again, right? LOL. So we shall see, but I'm not going crazy in that regard. Let me just catch up on some of the comments. What's up, Ray? Kirk just got some nose candy and bet Kansas City money line refs. Yeah. Fair enough. Mike, Milwaukee had a flyover on a closed roof on opening day. Original roof has to be opening day. No one's thought to cancel flyover. Oh, fair enough. Makes sense. What's up, Cody? Yeah, two best bets. And all right, so let's see. What's next? All right, so we got 3 games left, I think. Yeah. So Dodgers, Diamondbacks, my friend Zach Davies, Noah Syndergaard. I will say this about Noah Syndergaard. The Dodgers have a tremendous knack for fixing pitchers. Give credit to their pitching coach and I guess, other folks in their organization. But how often have we seen guys that are basically become gas cans go to LA and like they just look incredible. So credit to what that staff has done in many ways. And I do expect Noah Syndergaard to have a really good year if he can stay healthy because again, LA just fixes pitching. Like it's just reality, right? They've been doing it for years. As for Zach Davies, another guy that I don't think I'll ever understand. He throws like 89 miles an hour. Doesn't have a whole lot of bite on any of his pitches, and yet the guy consistently gets outs. And yeah, at times he gets a little blown up, and I lost a lot of money fading him 3-4 years ago when he was with Milwaukee, when his like Sierra and his xFIP was like 3 runs higher than his surface ERA. But I'm done with that train. The guy just gets outs, and I'm not losing money in that respect with him anymore. However, I'm not going to back him in bets. I will say this: I think that um, the Dodgers. I don't. This line is pretty short to me. I don't bet the Dodgers often, but this line feels pretty short. You can do a first 5. You can do anything in relation to backing Noah here. But again, I would want to see a little bit bigger of a sample on Noah Syndergaard in this Dodgers system. But I do think he's going to have a really good year this year if he can stay healthy because, again, they just fix pitching. And he's got good stuff. Like Noah Syndergaard has always had good stuff. He just can't figure himself out. And hopefully LA will be that magical potion for him. But, yeah, minus 160, a little high. Wish it was like minus 145-ish. But even still, like I'm negatively biased against betting the Dodgers. And this line feels a little short. So, yeah. I guess it would mean it's probably a good spot to bet the Dodgers. But yeah, I don't really ever bet the Dodgers. So if anything, I actually don't really bet Dodgers games much at all during the regular season. Like I think I probably do it. Even like last year, I want to say I did it like 4 times as far as like sides that involve the Dodgers, whether it was the Dodgers or their opponent. Maybe even less. I just don't bet a lot of their games. I feel like they're always overjuiced. And when they're not overjuiced, you have to ask yourself, are you even getting a good price against fading them? So yeah, overall, another spot where I'm not betting the Dodgers, but I am looking forward to watching Syndergaard this year if he can stay healthy because I do think he has a really good year. Rockies, Nationals, Austin Gomber, Trevor Williams. As I mentioned, this is the warmest game on the slate, and it's in Coors, which helps for runs, right? Hard to like anything about these two bullpens either. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for runs, but it's not exactly your traditional Coors Field warm weather day. It's the warmest game on the slate, but that's only relevant to the other games actually on the slate, right? So 60 degrees, obviously ball can get some carry out there, but nothing crazy. But again, you just have 2 tough arms or 2 bad arms for that matter. I'm definitely neither fan of either of these guys. But the problem is too, like the lineups, you don't really love the lineups for either of these teams either. But yeah, it almost feels like a type of game where there's going to be runners on every inning, and balls can certainly leave the yard in this weather and at that park. So yeah, slightly over. Don't love it. I think that if this was like 90 degrees in Coors, I think that this total is likely 12.5 today. 12 and a half. But because it's 60 degrees, you are getting a little bit of soft number in terms of that over. But yeah, I'll stay away from me. Angels, Blue Jays, Jose Berrios going up against Tyler Anderson. Now, Tyler Anderson, the question becomes, and we talk on we talk on what LA Dodgers have done for pitching. Tyler Anderson went from like a mid at best in Pittsburgh to just a really good arm in the Dodgers pitching rotation. Now he goes to LA the other LA in the Angels, where it seems like they do the exact opposite with pitchers that the Dodgers do. Like pitchers come to the Angels and they're terrible, and pitchers go to the Dodgers and they become like Hall of Famers. Interested to see where Tyler Anderson goes from here, right? He had a good start in his first time out against Oakland, but then again, like I feel like I could throw like a scoreless inning against Oakland, LOL. So I don't know what to make of it. It's one start. I will say this, that I think, and I'm waiting for this maybe to get a little bigger. I think this is a really good spot to bet the Blue Jays. I just don't think anybody's really going to bet the Blue Jays. So I think I can get a little better number, but this is almost undoubtedly going to be a game I fire on. So I'll actually put it in this as a bet. Let me just see what price I can get. So it's plus 100, but I feel like I could probably get at least plus 105 before the game starts. And look, like you guys might say, oh, well, 5 cents here, 5 cents there. What does that matter? I mean, look, over the course of a season, it fucking matters. Like it's 5% of your bet. So if you were to take that approach, right? Oh, what does 5 cents or 10 cents matter? I mean, what matters is wins and losses. True, to a certain extent, right? Because if you're here thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to let these 5 cent, 5, 10, sometimes even 15-cent edges, who cares? I mean, if I win it, that's what matters. But if you multiply the times you do that over the course of a baseball season with all these games, right? Like let's say over the course of a baseball season, you bet 1,000 bets, right? Maybe that's a little much. Maybe that's not enough. It doesn't really matter. It's each his or her own. 1,000 bets, where let's even say that half of those 500 bets, you at 5 or 10 cents come off, negatively in your favor, right? That's almost going to equate to what, like almost 20 whole bets, right? 25 whole bets. And that matters, right? That matters to your bottom line. So just keep that in mind. Like 20 or 25 full bets, if you're doing that over the course of a season where you're not extrapolating, where you can find your 5 to 10 cent edges and actually take advantage of them versus letting them take advantage of you. So yeah, ultimately I'm just trying to see if I can get plus 105 at FanDuel real quick on this Blue Jays game, because I'll be honest, I don't think it's gonna go much higher than plus 105. I think you start to see some buyback there. So plus 104, LOL, right. Of course, it's plus 104. So yeah, we'll put it here. So we'll put it here. Blue Jays money line plus 105. Well, actually, hold on a second. Let me just see, because I think Joey Work does Joey Work ever play in this game? No. Woo. We're in the clear, boys. We're in the clear. Joey Work's not on this game or on the opposite side or anything, so we're good. We're good. All right. So yeah, Jays money line. We'll say plus 104 FanDuel for the play. But just to be transparent with you, I'm likely gonna fire on this game later. I just think it's your prototypical spot where Jose Berrios coming off a bad start. I know he's more of a better pitcher on the at home versus on the road, but he's also typically pretty good against righties. And the Angels just have a tremendous amount of right-handed bats, and obviously Trout hit just an absolute missile yesterday. I mean, that was borderline comical how far that ball was hit, or how hard that ball was hit. But anyway, yeah, I do like the Jays. To me, I think you have a few different advantages. I would go as far to argue that the Jays lineup is better. The Jays bullpen is better. The Jays starting pitcher in this spot is better. And you're getting a dog price. So to me, I think you're getting all three in your favor at plus 104. And again, I'll likely wait a bit, but I will definitely be firing on this game. I don't think we're getting any more buyback on the Blue Jays. So yeah, those are the three games. And Ray showing 108 offshore. Yeah, I think this game could climb. Legally at the legal markets, though, I don't know if we'll see that number, but I do really like the spot for the Jays. I think it's a good buy low, sell high spot overall. So other than that, that's the three games. Sub Nick, yeah, he loves Davies. Yeah, dead taxes and me talking good about Zach Davies, right? I'm glad you noticed, Rogue, that it does matter. Obviously, those 5-10 cent edges over the course of the season, they matter a whole lot. And obviously, like I said, Ray's mentioned a 108 offshore, so guys want to grab that, that's plenty good as well. All right. So with all that said, this actually show ran longer than I thought it was than I wanted it to. But either way, got through the games. I wish you guys all the best of luck today. I know the Masters is on, so I hope you guys are enjoying that. Got a little minor NASCAR race today as well. NASCAR tomorrow. I'll be back with Joey, Holden, and maybe even my boy Gary from the DFS end of Run Pure, where we'll have the panel where Holden will host, Gary will talk some DFS, Joey will talk bets, and then I'll talk a little hybrid of both. So it should be a fun show, and then after that we'll do the NASCAR show. So yeah, as always, another weekend with full content. Obviously a big UFC card as well today, so check us out, runpuresports.com, see all our content, all our bets that we got down. And I did fire on tennis as well. So, but needless to say, Rod, take a little stab at Brian Reynolds to the homer plus 450. I fucks with it. But look, seriously, guys. Thanks, Rod. Seriously, guys, I hope everything is going good with everybody. Stay safe. Look, run pure. As always, gamble responsibly, though, folks. And yes, I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Good luck all around.